John Rahm versus Tommy Fleetwood. Who has the most optimal driver swing? What's up, guys? It's your favorite Cuba coach. Let's go do this thing. Alright guys, if you guys are new to Mike's OG Academy, do everything you guys need to know about golf instruction, whether it be golf swing analysis like this one, golf tip videos, golf instructional vlogs. Again, anything you guys need to know about golf instruction, we do it here. So if you guys haven't already, hit that little red subscribe button. You guys are going to be notified every time we drop a video. So getting into the macro ideas around this video analysis, what do we want you guys to get from this? Well, we're going to be talking about optimal swing, going off that theme again. Now, let's kind of narrow down what we mean by optimal swing in this scenario. We're talking about optimal driver swings. We're talking about optimal driver swings in 2018. And we're also using the ideas around injury prevention as another point in terms of, is it more optimal than the other swing? So, first part of this video, we're going to get briefly into statistics in 2018. Just go over one category, which is strokes gained off the tee. Once we get past that and we make our first initial claim of who we think is more optimal, then we're going to get into kind of swing ideas, how they differ, what do we want you guys to take home from that as well. And then finally, the last part is going to be the injury prevention part, which is a super important point. And I see it time and time again between these types of models, and I really want you guys to get the differences between these models and how you guys back at home can do the one that I think is more so the optimal model. Cool, so let's get into it. So the first statistic we're going to get into is strokes gained off the tee. So what does that really mean? Well, strokes gained off the tee is how many strokes are they gaining off the tee relative to the field, right? So Tommy Fleetwood is gaining right around 0.5 of a stroke to the field on average. That places him right around 17th place throughout the whole PGA Tour. That is measured off of 50 rounds for him. Now, if we go take a look at John Rahm, Rahm is going to be placed at third throughout the whole PGA Tour, and he's gaining right around 0.8 of a stroke off the tee relative to the field. So, based off that statistic right there, I would say that John Rahm has a more optimal driver's swing. So, why do I say that? Well, we can't just take into account driving accuracy and driving distance, even though those are great stats to look at to help your guys' games out there, but you really want to know more so strokes gained off the tee, right? Because the golf game is about shooting the lowest score, and you might be the most accurate driver, and you might be the most, you might have the most distance, but does that always mean you're going to have the most strokes gained off the tee? Most of the time it does, but not all the time, right? And this scenario is one of those times where I think strokes gained off the tee for Rahm, he's not necessarily the most accurate driver between the two. If you want to go check the stats, go look. I think Tommy Fleetwood hits about 4% more fairways than I think than Rahm. But Rahm has more strokes gained off the tee, right? And that's just because when he is hitting driver, he's putting himself in positions to where he has a better chance to score relative to when Tommy Fleetwood is doing it. So keeping that in mind, that is all we're going to talk about in terms of statistics. So my claim as of now is I think John Rahm's golf swing in terms of driver in 2018 is the more optimal swing. So taking that, let's get into this analysis and start going over backswing ideas and what they're doing at the top of the swing. So we're going to take a look at Tommy Fleetwood first. So I'm going to draw an angle on his trail side knee just to kind of see how much flex he has in this trail side knee. Now, draw the same angle on Rahm, we can see that Rahm is over at 155, right? All this really shows us is that Rahm has a little bit less flexion in the knees at the top of the swing than Fleetwood. Now, why is this important? Well, this is definitely important to me because it's an indicator of what they're going to do in the downswing. Typically, when I see players, especially better players, have a little bit more flexion in the knees on the downswing, we're going to start seeing them have the model of swing where they start extending a little bit early in the lower body and getting a lot of right side lateral bend through the ball. And that's exactly what we're about to see here with Fleetwood. So let's go take a look at what we're doing here. So as Fleetwood starts coming into the golf ball, the first thing I want to stop at is right around position 5. So he's getting into a really good position 5 at this point. Hands are slightly more behind the body than Rahm is going to be just because Fleetwood likes to hit a draw. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just knowing what type of ball flight you typically want to hit. Now from here, let's start looking at kind of left pelvic tilt, anterior pelvic tilt, and lordosis ideas. What does that really mean? Well, left pelvic tilt is just the left side of the pelvis lowering in transition. So let's kind of zoom in here and see that we can watch Tommy Fleetwood having that nice little move, right? Notice how the pelvis line is going a little bit lower in transition. That's left pelvic tilt. Now also what he's doing is something called APT, which is from the front end, the pelvis tilting downwards. So while he's doing left pelvic tilt, he's also getting APT, anterior pelvic tilt, and a little bit of lordosis, which is basically just getting that little natural curve in the spine, increasing subtly from the top of the swing. What does that really mean? Well, it's getting him into a great position here to start rotating in the downswing and start getting the downswing sequence the way that we want it to. Now, from this position, Tommy Fleetwood is in a great spot to hit the golf ball, but now he starts doing something a little bit out of character to what I like to see. So let's start looking at his trail side heel here. So when we start looking at his trail side heel, from this position 5 to about position 6, we're going to start seeing it extend off the ground a little bit early. It's almost just working straight up this way. Instead of rolling it and then letting it work up, his is just working straight up like that. Now at this position 6, we can also see if we take him back to position 5 and draw an arrow on kind of the pelvic line, we're going to see that his pelvic line is extending, right? So see how it's getting higher at this position 6. Do you see that? So he's coming out of his LPT and APT maybe a little bit early for my liking, and that's getting him doing this ball and socket idea that I like to talk about for when I see players get that kind of early extension goat humping look. There's in the left side pelvis and the right side pelvis, but there's the whole ball and socket idea. When the ball gets to the top of the socket, it locks in place, your thoracic can't rotate. What I want you guys to do right now is pause the video. I want you to get the left side of your pelvis higher than your right, and then try to rotate your mid-spine. You're going to find it really hard to do. Now, I want you to get the left side of the pelvis lower than the right. To do that, you're going to have to get the left side knee lower than the right side knee. You're going to find that it's a lot easier to rotate your mid-spine. So, for someone who hits a wicked slice, this is probably not the information for you, but for someone who knows that they early extend and kind of hits big blocks and big hooks, this is going to be golden information for you, what I just said. I want you guys to get that feel. Get up to the top of the swing. Make sure the left side pelvis is lowering by getting the left knee lower than the right knee. And you're going to find that you can rotate your mid-spine and let it release a lot more than you could with the other way. So we're going to stop Tommy Fleetwood here, and let's go take a look at Rahm, who is more so the model I like to see, and see what he does differently. Now, in transition, Rahm has a very similar move. We're going to see that he gets left pelvic tilt here. The left side of the pelvis is lowering. He's getting APT, right? Watch how his belt buckle is starting to get lower, which is the front end of the pelvis tilting down this way. He's getting that nice little lordosis move too. Now, from this left arm parallel position, if we take both players back to where they were, you're going to see that they're pretty much in a similar position here. Now, like I said, Tommy Fleetwood's hands is probably a little bit more behind him than Rahm's is, just because the differences in ball flights they like to hit. But in general, they're in a pretty good spot. Now, as we take Rahm down to position 6, we're going to see that Rahm doesn't extend the pelvis as much as, say, a Tommy Fleetwood, right? So let's go back up to position 5. Let's draw an arrow on the pelvic line, which is right about here. And we'll do the same thing with Fleetwood. Let's take Fleetwood down to position 6. Notice how we can really see that pelvis line extending to here. And then we take a look at Rahm, we can see it extending as well, but not as much, right? Not as much as Fleetwood. Cool. Now, from this position, let's take a look at their trail side shoulders, and let's kind of start seeing something interesting here. So relative to where his body is, I would say that Fleetwood's trail side shoulder is starting to get trapped behind the rib cage. It's almost getting kind of that look right here. If we take a look at Rahm, Rahm's shoulder is a little bit more out in front of his body, and it's not trapped behind that trail side shoulder. Now, from this position, as we get into impact, we're really going to start seeing the differences between these two players, and we can see that Tommy Fleetwood's elbow is stuck behind his body right here, right? See, notice how it's behind the body. So the only place his hands can go now is a little bit more out towards the golf ball this way, as opposed to exiting left, which is what I know he's trying to work on. Cool, so let's get him into impact and we'll stop. Cool, so we can see Tommy Fleetwood's knees have pretty much fully extended. His pelvis line has extended a little bit too. He's pretty much trapped here. His trail side shoulders behind the body. We're going to start seeing getting a lot of right side lateral bend here to make sure that he doesn't move his head so far forward. Now, if we took Rahm into the golf ball, we're going to see a little bit of a different move. As he comes into impact, we're going to see that the knees have extended slightly less than Fleetwood's, right? They've still extended, and the pelvis is also extended as well, but nowhere near as much as Fleetwood. We can also see, look at basically the wrinkles in Jon Rahm's shirt. You can hardly see any. Look at the wrinkles in Fleetwood. We can see that right here, that shoulder blade is behind the body here. If we look at Rahm's shoulder blade, it's nowhere near being behind that body. So from this position, let's keep going to position 8. And this is kind of the money shot right here that I want you guys to really focus in on. We take Rahm. If we take Rahm into the same position, which is pretty much right here, this is where you're going to see the massive difference, right? So from this position, now we can really start seeing this shoulder blade getting behind the body, and he's really starting to get a lot of right side lateral bend. Look at that little curvature right here. That's a massive amount of curvature for a player who wants to stay injury free. I would say this model that Fleetwood has right here, this amount of curvature is not supporting the lumbar spine. Because I want you guys to try this now. This is the whole idea. If you guys can get, you guys are going to become a lot better ball strikers. So I want you to get into a similar position as Fleetwood here. And I want you to try to rotate your upper body, your mid spine. You're going to find it very hard to do, and you're going to find that as you're rotating, you're putting a lot of, you're grinding down basically the cartilage, and you're grinding down the vertebrae towards the bottom, which is the lumbar spine, and you're really putting a lot of stress on it. Now go ahead and now try to copy a little bit more Rahm's. He has less of that right side lateral bend. Look, and now try to start rotating. You're going to find it's a lot easier to rotate, and you're not going to feel probably any strain on your lumbar spine unless you already have a pre-existing injury. Then you're probably always going to find some type of lower body pain, because again, the golf swing isn't a natural movement. The spine is not meant to move the way that the golf swing moves. So no matter what swing you do, if you're rotating your spine that way and having some type of right side lateral bend, you're going to find a little bit of strain. But I guarantee for the masses out there, even the people who are already injured in the lumbar spine, you're going to find Jon Rahm's model a lot easier to do, and you're going to feel a lot less stress and a lot less strain as you do this model, right? So take home points so far. Who has the most optimal swing? For driver in 2018 with statistics, we said that Jon Rahm did. Now, why does he have that better optimal swing? Well, I would say from his position 5, he's a lot different look than Fleetwood does. Fleetwood starts extending the pelvis, getting the left side pelvis pretty high early. He gets that right side lateral bend look excessively to where he gets this trail side shoulder behind the rib cage. And then from there, it's really hard for him to rotate his upper body. And he's really just allowing the hands to move through. And then from there, he's also putting on a lot of strain on this lumbar spine right there. If we take a look at Rahm, he has a different move. He doesn't drop into right side lateral bend as much as Tommy Fleetwood. His trail side heel stays a little bit more firmly on the ground. He's more so rolling on that foot than he is just straight lifting, which then from there makes sure that the lead side pelvis is not extending excessively. Then as he gets into impact, he has a lot less right side lateral bend. He's supporting the lumbar spine way more efficiently. And from here, he's able to release the upper body a lot better than, say, a Fleetwood would at this time. So we take a look at the differences at, call this right around position 9. We can definitely see a massive difference. Way less stalled out with Rahm. Tommy Fleetwood's definitely stalled out here. Now, the last interesting part of this analysis, I want you to take a look at Fleetwood's pelvis line. Now watch his pelvis line. See how his chest is not rotated pretty much from here to here. It's rotated a little bit, but it hasn't fully released yet. Now watch as his pelvis line starts going downwards right about here. See how it starts to drop? And then his upper body is able to rotate through. So that gives you some more information on the ball and socket idea. At that position, that ball kind of dropped down, and then he was able to rotate his mid-spine through the ball and let it release way after the golf ball. And I still believe he has a lot more stress on there. So anyways, guys, I know that was another long analysis. I mean, you're going to start seeing more and more similar ideas. If you guys keep watching my swing analysis, I do have a preference in terms of methodology, in terms of what mechanics I like to see. I do think that more of a raw model is a lot more less injury prone basically than a Tommy Fleetwood's. I see so many tour players having Tommy Fleetwood's method and they still hit great golf shots. I'm not taking away from that. I would just say if our argument of optimal swing is going off of statistics and injury prevention, I would say that John Rahm has the more optimal driver's swing, and that is my claim. So if you guys want, feel free, hit that comment section up. Let me know. Let's start a debate. See if you guys agree or disagree with me. What are you guys' supporting claims? All that good stuff. Smash that like button as always. Leave me a comment like I just said. And as always, hit that little red subscribe button. Alright guys, best of luck and play some golf out there.